there, my name is Fawn, and today we're cleaning my very nasty gouache paint palette. On top of cleaning it out, I'm also going to be refilling it, picking out some new colors to put in, and the like. For those of you who are wondering why are you cleaning out this paint palette if there's so much paint left in the wells, that is because I have had this paint in this palette for the past several months. I would say almost 6 months now, and with gouache, normally you have them in little tubs or in tubes where they're kept fresh and airtight and wet. And the problem with gouache having it in a separate palette is that if you don't continuously spray them with water and then stir them around, they get kind of hard and crusty, where they start being less creamy and they start to act more like a regular watercolor. You can't apply them as thick. So these are just a little bit crusty, and I want some fresh, creamy gouache in here, and I also want to pick out a couple new colors. This is my mixing palette on the left that I just washed, and the 56 count Maya gouache set on the right. It is huge. There are a lot of color options that I really like. But one thing about it is that it didn't come with any mixing area, so I couldn't mix any of my colors, and that's part of why I got this second palette. Another reason why I got this second palette to use for storage on the different colors was because I saw a lot of artists using the big palette and leaving the whole thing open where all of your colors are exposed to the air while they're picking in and out to get their different colors, and that made all of the different tubs of paint dry out a lot faster and require a lot more maintenance. So I figured I would get a second little mixing palette for mixing room, but also so that I could keep the main palette with the colors I don't use as often closed. That way they don't dry out. And this worked out really well for me. Whenever I first set it up, I picked a couple of colors from all the different color areas. The only ones that I didn't pick were black and brown, and that, in my opinion, was a mistake. Another mistake that I made when setting up my palette for the first time was not considering how warm or cool the colors were that I was putting in there. So I ended up with a lot of warm reds, cool yellows, cool blues, and warm greens. This meant that my reds leaned a little more orange, my yellows leaned a little more green, my blues leaned a little more green, and my greens leaned a little more yellow. And something that you should know about mixing different colors is that if you mix a cool yellow with a warm red, it will actually make a very muddy, almost nasty orange, whereas if you mixed a cool red and a cool yellow, or a warm red and a warm yellow, where it will make a more vibrant color. So I didn't consider that. I also didn't consider the warmth of the colors that I usually use for skin tones or landscapes or whatever. When it comes to painting portraits and doing skin tones and using reds for those, I don't use warm reds and skin tones. I normally use cool reds. And so the first time that I tried to make a skin tone color with the warm reds, it turned out awful and ugly, and I hated it. So this time I added a lot more cool reds, and then I also added some cool yellow and warm yellow, and then more of like a neutral tone. And then I also added some cool and warm greens and some cool and warm blues. The three colors that I also added that I did not have previously in my set with my palette was black, a burnt umber, and then some sort of sienna color. And that's because whenever I first made my palette, I thought I would just mix the browns and I would just mix black. And I never ended up really doing that. I just brought stuff over and then put them all over the palette, and they didn't have their own well. So this time I did that. You can make your own black, you can make your own browns. It's just easier if they're pre-made for you. If you are learning to make your own colors, I don't suggest that you buy a super huge palette where you have everything available to you already, because you need to challenge yourself to learn. But if you're someone like me who knows how to mix those colors and is just lazy, I think having more colors is helpful and saves time. So to summarize things, when you're setting up a new palette, I definitely recommend that you pull out warm and cool versions of red, yellow, and blue. So that's going to give you 6 different colors to work with, and you can mix most anything with those 6 colors. I also recommend that you add a white, a brown, and a black. Yes, you can mix your own brown and black. Will you do that? Probably not, and it's going to be a lot more time efficient if you just add in maybe like a warm brown and a cool brown and also a black. That's all that I had to talk about today. I hope you have a great week. Make sure you subscribe or like the video if you want to do either of those things, and if not, no worries. Have a great week anyway, and I will see you around.